Hey, gang. All right, well, this week we are in for the second jam session installment of Mercy, Mercy Me. This time we're going to focus on playing a solo to it. We'll show you some of the main ideas of the stuff I just played, some of the tricks of the trade, and then I'll show you how to handle that modulation when it goes into first the second the second key that it goes into, and then the last key that it goes into. All right. So that on the normal song, that would be where the sax solo kicks in. The sax solo kicks in on that first modulation. But we're going to solo over the whole thing. This is just a great jam tune. All right. Hey, as always, if you like this one, give it the thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, subscribe for one or a couple of these every week. Okay, we'll see you in just a second. All right, gang. Let's go over some of the ideas that I used in the solo. I kind of like the beginning of the solo. I thought I did an okay job playing a melodic solo. At the end of it, I think I was too intent on using some of the tricks that I wanted to show you, or some of the ideas that I wanted to show you in terms of the kind of guitar gimmicks that you can use. And to me, it didn't come off as well. But in any event, let's talk a little bit. First, I want to tell you about what the scales or things that you can play over are, some of the arpeggios and things like that, but mainly I think the scales. We'll talk about the scales, and then I want to tell you a little bit about the articulation that you can use and what's appropriate and what's kind of not, and then we'll show you some of the tricks, okay? I've got some of that stuff tabbed up. I don't have the actual solo tabbed up. Might be a good exercise if you want to, because this is actually a pretty easy one to transcribe it yourself if you want to try doing that, because it all is basically in one key except for the end, and I'm going to show you how to handle that as well. All right, so let's get on to the scale. So in the main part of the song, which would be this, right? The stuff that we went over last time, all of that is in the key of E major. So two scales that you can use are the E major pentatonic, which you probably already know, and all of its permutations, so you can play it in any position. It's going to work anywhere. All right, and then the E major scale. And again, in all of its permutation. All right, so all the different permutations of the E major scale are good to know. So take your time, kind of map out that on the fretboard, and we'll be all set to go. Now, I like using the major scale on this, although there are some pentatonic licks that work pretty well, I think, or pentatonic phrases, I should say, not licks. But the reason I like the major scale is because of a couple of those, either those minor sevenths that you're going to put in. Those are okay for the major pentatonic, but the over that chord, that E major seventh chord, the beautiful chord that's that kind of is the cornerstone of this song, or part of the main tone of this song. This note right here comes in, and in fact Marvin Gaye sings it. Oh, mercy, mercy me. That note right there is great over the E major seventh, and of course it does not appear in the major pentatonic. So that's a nice note to be. That's a nice note to emphasize. All right, and with that, an E major arpeggio, an E major seventh, is a nice little thing to be able to do. I don't think I used that in this, but that's a nice thing to be able to do. All right, let's talk about some of the phrasing. So the phrasing, the best thing I think you can do for the phrasing is to get yourself a copy, or listen to it on Google, or on Google Play or iTunes or whatever you use, Spotify. Go and listen to George Benson's Breezin' about 5 times, and I think you'll get the articulation. What you don't want to be doing is you don't want to be playing a lot of this kind of stuff. None of that, okay? None of that is going to work so well in this. You just want to listen to that articulation. So I'm picking a lot of the notes. And I'm doing slides in the beginning of the phrases a lot. I'm not sure how much I use this in this solo, but one of the things I like a lot when I do play this solo, sometimes I'll play a lot of this little rake picking. And for that I usually rake on three strings. So that's one of the things that you can do, a rake. All right, so you can do slides. You can do slides. You can do the rakes, and then a couple of the other effects that I'm gonna show you are you can do double stops. So double stops are playing on 2 notes that are adjacent to each other. Kind of like, yeah, that Brown-Eyed Girl. That's a good example. But you might also think of them in kind of sounds like South of the Border music. But anyway, those are double stop thirds. Those work great, and I've got some of those tabbed up, some of those ideas. You can also do double stop fourths. Those are great in R&B. Double stop fourths are a great thing to know and to try out. So I've got some of those double stop fourths tabbed up for you. And let's see, another one that's kind of nice is octaves. So octaves, if you're not familiar with them, are playing the same note, but just separated by 12 notes. Right, so a whole octave, so it's the same tone, just an octave up, and you have to play them on non-adjacent strings. Well, you don't have to, but it sure makes it a lot easier if you're playing it on non-adjacent strings. And George Benson used them a lot, and of course he did that after sort of Wes Montgomery kind of made it famous and really kind of perfected the octave. If you really want to hear how octaves are played, you can listen to George Benson. He does a great job with it, but Wes, man, that was where it was at. Okay, so there you go. So those are some ideas as well. I've got some octaves tabbed up for you. That's what's going on there. Now, near the end of the song, where I was doing that kind of fast lick, and I will say that I don't know, I wasn't too in love with this lick, but I was anticipating going up to the next note, or the next key. The key modulates up from an E, from the key of E to the key of F. So it's exactly the same. It's just one half step up, and a great place to modulate to that is on this E note, because it's such a good note over that E major scale, right? As you're playing this, right? It's a great note, right? But when it modulates, it still works because it's the major seventh of that F major seventh chord. So that's a great one to help you modulate. And of course, instead of playing, we're just moving up a half step. So that works great. And so you can go from an E major pentatonic to an F major pentatonic, just a half step up, or an E major to an F major, and that works. So that's played once, and then it actually modulates to either some single chord vamp, like an F. I don't know if it's an F minor or an A flat major, which is the thing that starts out the song, right? But in any case, we can play in A flat major, and it's really going to sound good. So on that last modulation, where it goes to that, you can play an A flat major, or a F minor pentatonic, whatever you want, however you want to think about it, okay? So all right. And that works. All right, so lots of stuff that you can play over this. You're using, for the main part of the song, you're using the E major pentatonic, or the E major scale. You can listen to George Benson for your articulation. He's can be a great guide for you. And then you've got some tricks up your sleeve, right? You've got those little slides. You've got those rakes. You've got that. And then you've got all the double stop licks, right? The thirds and the fourths. And then finally you've got octaves. All right. All right, gang. Well, there you have it. Nice smooth solo to this one, and hope you got some ideas for what you can do when you're playing this out on jam night. This is a blast. I love playing this sort of stuff. I mean, I love the other blues, the harder blues and all that kind of stuff, but every once in a while I have to get my my smooth groove on too. All right, and this is a good one to do it with. Okay, until next time, we'll see you on down the road.